Down here, San Antonio Bay, Cottonwood Bayou, all the back lakes, man. We've been inundated with lots of water here the last few days. A lot of coastal flooding has gone on. So hopefully, wherever you have been fishing, that you've been taking advantage of this extra water that we've had in here. So these are great opportunities for you to be able to get into areas that you probably normally wouldn't be able to get to do just because of the normal tides that we have, depending on the type of boat that you have, or what's going on with whatever you have there as far as the back lakes or those types of areas. All these areas here, man, when we've had all this extra water, it just kind of lights the whole thing up. It just kind of puts fresh water in there. It revitalizes the back lakes and these flats and everything, so the fish really get a little energized. So you find some really frisky fish or some really aggressive opportunities from these fish all up and down the shoreline as you get back in these back lakes. You know, the Cottonwood back lake here is really one of my favorite areas to get into. The next bayou here, the Shell Reef Bayou, all this back in here, it connects with Big Brundit and those areas back in there. So you can find lots of these little areas that you can get behind these islands, get on these shorelines. And we found some really great fish that are back in these areas. Lots of aggressive fish, lots of schools of fish here and there. Not massive amounts as far as schools go. You know, you may find some that are 15 to 20, maybe 30 fish that are in an area, but you have some opportunities when you find these fish that are working back these areas like that. A lot of bait working in here. You know, just great opportunity when you have these higher waters that come into this. So make sure that you take advantage when you see those tides that are really high like that. So main things, redfish have been very good back in these back lakes in a lot of these things. We found some very solid trout back in here. You know, they'll flounder. You'll find some flounder laying up in some of these particular areas, and even an occasional black drum. So kind of hit the gamut with all these, and that's the great thing about the back lakes. It opens up for you opportunities like that for you to get. Main things we've been throwing down south: knocking tails, marker 54, topwaters. Those have been the four things that we've really been focusing on and throwing. So in the down south, it's been the Twisted Tea, it's been the Big Papa. We've thrown some white ice, Purple Rain, those all in the Chicken of the Sea. Copperfield, also in the original size for down south. All the burner shads, we've been throwing Firecracker, we've been throwing Acid Rain. Mud Minnow has been a very productive flavor this particular past week. That Mud Minnow color has really done well in a lot of these water clarity issues, or a lot of watercolor that we've had in some of these back lakes or back edges, if you will. The Knocking Tail, the big thing with the Knocking Tail has been Rogue. Rogue's been pretty much knocking it out of the park with that particular flavor. It's matched great color, great flavor. Everything in all these estuaries, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's been dirtier water, if it's been cleaner water, you put the Rogue flavor on and you're going to be consistent with it no matter what. So there's really not a whole lot of thought process when you go into that particular pick. So, heavy metal, been good. Greenback has been good. Also, smoke flavor has been very good. And then, of course, when you've gotten in these really clear water situations, which we've had, we've had some days where we've had some lower winds, but the water has been super clear, or maybe just a tad bit off color clear. So we've been throwing that Knocking Tail, the small minnow, as far as that. It's a really clear, super clear bait, lots of flake that's in that, so it's been really good as well. Topwater bait, especially in the backwaters here, all these back lake areas, you work the shorelines, throwing the topwaters, you're going to have some outstanding blow-ups. You can have some great catches that are back in some of these spaces. It's been a lot of fun watching all that take place. So, and when that bite kind of gets to the point where those fish are not really wanting to be super aggressive anymore and wanting to attack that topwater, flip to one of either the down south or the jerk shrimp or the Knocking Tail. Any one of those have been very good, because once they stop that, they hit the swirl or they slap it or whatever, they're not as aggressive wanting to feed that. So you get something down in their face, and you'll get those opportunities that you would probably miss otherwise, unless you just want to stick with it and you're a topwater junkie, like there are a few that I have had on the boat before, and myself included. So it's a great opportunity and a great time. work all these areas around these shorelines. The grass, there's a lot of flooded grass, lots of bait working around these. Be patient with it. Again, the major time frames for us that we've been finding and catching fish has all been in the majors, been the minors. That's been the most productive time frames for us in lots of these areas. Scratched out a few fish in between those feeding periods, but once you get into it, in around those majors and minors, those fish really are responding to that time frame and being very aggressive, and you can have a very productive bite frame. So please take advantage of these higher waters. I don't know how long it's going to last, so just continue to pay attention to what your tides are and what your weather is going to be doing, and have a lot of fun in some of these back lakes. Back lakes here, Long Reef Bend, from the Mott, all the way down here in the Bend, all the way up to Jaybird Point, down to Sherman's, all this area in here. Again, with all the inundation of water that we've had and the amount of water that we've had, so it's really opened up a lots of these areas and for you to fish, to be able to get up close to the shoreline, get in these back lakes, take advantage of that opportunity all up and down, especially here in Sherman's. Such a great little area, man. You've got big back lakes that come all the way back around here that you can get into and work all that. You got shorelines on either leeward side or the windward side, whatever your wind is doing. You can work both sides of the Shermans. You've got the deeper guts that's on the outside when that water really starts to drop out. So we've had big moving tides because of this. Get up here on Jaybird, and you've got great areas on the outside where we've caught a lot of trout in some of these areas as you head down here toward Long Reef Bend. And, man, there's so much fishable, great areas in there. You've got lots of these lakes that have opened up because of all this extra water in here. So, again, I talked about in the last video, make sure that you take advantage of these opportunities because they don't always just stay around, because we get back into our normal tides and some of these fish will move out of that and you won't have these opportunities anymore and you won't be able to get your boat in there. So lots of great wading areas that are backing off in these little lakes here that you can access from the outside shoreline, from the Aransas side. Just walk across the body of water or some of the little cut-throughs, just walk through those and just start working these shorelines. Topwater baits have been spectacular in some of these back lakes. You get some great opportunities, some spectacular blow-ups, great takes, a lot of fun fishing these things. Fishing a lot of burner shads that are back in these, fishing a lot of the knocking tails back in these as well. You know, water gets kind of clean back in here in Long Reef Bend area. So a lot of that water that's in here we've gotten right up on the mouths of these, right up on the shoreline. And, you know, and it's right at, you know, mid-thigh to waist deep in some of these spots. So you have some great opportunities throwing baits up against these shorelines here. Fish are kind of scattered out in a lot of these areas since that does happen. That water does come up like that. So it'll push fish around. So you may have to take a little bit more time to kind of locate and see what's going on. Once you find a nice little concentration of bait working in the area, really go to town working on that. Be patient with that area. Again, the burner shads that we've been primarily throwing have been the firecracker, it's been the acid rain, it's been the mud minnow. Mud minnow has been very good for us. And in turn, in the knock and tail, you know, again, the rogue, heavy metal, greenback, those three flavors have been super good for us as well. So, and then of course there's a newer bait that they're coming out with or have come out with. It's called the G Shad. So, and it's the smoke as well, but the G Shad, man, it looks just like a little bitty finger mullet, and it's been very productive as well. You know, there's a ton of bait that's working in these. So when you get the opportunity to work these edges, you know, outside of the bite frames, you know, with majors and minors, work these edges, find the grass, get over those potholes, work all these areas like that, and you'll find some terrific fish that are working in these areas. But again, the main thing that we've really been doing, really been focusing our time frame has been the majors and minors. Again, we're kind of scratching and grinding in between bite frames in those particular times. But you can find a few fish, throw something a little bit smaller at them. And another thing that you make sure that you consider is that we're in the transition days heading toward a new moon. That said, unlike having it in a full moon, you know, where you primarily want to throw a smaller profile bait in the full or the new moon phase, you know, have a variety of flavors. It's kind of the same thing as you're heading into a full moon bite. But, you know, you can throw some medium-sized baits like what the original Down South is, or maybe even the supermodel in those flavors, whatever you like. Another one in the burner shad that's been very productive for us, too, is called Supernatural. And, of course, Twisted Tea. Twisted Tea has been very good, too, while I was thinking about that. So, anyway, add those to your arsenal as well, especially going into this new moon. You'll have some terrific opportunities in these areas. Again, take advantage while the water is super high so you can get into some areas that you normally may not get to fish. Turtle Pen, Copenhope Creek, all this back up in here. Again, another emphasis on the amount of water that we have in our system right now. So there's lots and lots of extra water that's in our estuaries and in our bays. So that's, again, take advantage of that in some areas that you normally may not go. So back here in Copenhope Creek, you can get back in this area here. You can wade this area back in here if you want to. There's some soft spots, a little squishy. Just depends on what your capabilities are, what you're comfortable with if you want to jump out of the boat in some of these areas back here. You can get on your trolling motor, you can run your big motor, whatever you want to, and get in the creek, and you can run this thing all the way, long way back up in here. And there's some great opportunities for fish hanging out in some of these areas. Are the fish always in there? No, they're not always in there, but it's worth, when you have these higher tides like we have right now, you can get into some of these areas and have a shot at some really quality fish, whether it i.e. be trout, whether it's redfish, whether it's some flounder, maybe even black drum, whatever. You can have some opportunities in these areas back here. You just work the creek. Great place for you to just probably get on your trolling motor. It may be too squishy for you to get out and wade. Not a big enough area. So just get your trolling motor down. Just work down the edge, whatever plastic that you want to throw, whether it be a down south, whether it be a knock and tail, or if you want to bounce a shrimp off of that. Especially back in some of these back lake areas like that, shrimp's very popular. With the marker 54, it does really good. It's very productive in some of these areas. Fish become very aggressive off of that. Out here in the big flat in the open area, you can work these shoreline edges all the way back to the cut, back going out to Turtle Pen area. And then, of course, the big sand flat that's out here on the right or left-hand side, depending on how you're going in. This whole shoreline all the way out here to the point has been pretty productive for the most part. We found mostly trout in these areas. Some nice trout in the slots, the 17s to 19s. There's a few that are mixed in there with a lot of the dinks that are in there as well. Lots of those are starting to show up. We're getting into that time frame really where you're, finding your grass, and you're going to find some very quality fish in some of these areas, whether it be redfish, whether it be trout, really good fish. Finding your bait, working these areas, again, the same baits that I just mentioned. So, again, talking about getting into the new moon phase, headed that way, be probably the next 4 or 5 days, we'll be into that time frame, so take advantage of that, get into these back lake areas back here. If you're going to wade this back in the corner, just make sure you're aware that those mouths are really soft, really muddy. You'll get in some calf and knee-deep mud back in here, so it might be a little spooky for you. If you don't want to deal with that, just stay in the boat and work it off of that if you so choose. Out away from it, it's more firm, so you can cast up into those areas, and that's what I would recommend to you, is instead of being up in the mouth itself, fish the mouth. Fish it from a distance so you don't have to contend with that. But again, with the amount of water that we have, it's opened up a lot more areas for you to be able to fish. This whole shoreline back in here, you get some few back lakes that are here, finding that grass and the shell that's on these areas here. We found some nice redfish work in these areas, all the way back around to Shell Point. All that, even the little flat that's back around this area here before you get back to Holiday Beach, has held a few fish here and there with it. Not great numbers, but there's a few fish around. If you're finding bait that's working in these areas, then you'll have an opportunity. Again, the main baits in the burner shad has been acid rain, mud minnow, primarily those two, firecracker. Supernatural's been good, Twisted Tea's been good in all those. And then, of course, in the original size, the Chicken of the Sea, Twisted Tea, Copperfield, those have been very good colors as well. Knock and tail lures, the G-shad, heavy metal, Rogue. Again, Rogue, I can't say enough about the Rogue flavor. That's a terrific color in any one of these estuaries. Super easy to work and just really does a great job, and it's super productive consistently no matter what the situation is, what's going on, what's high pressure, low pressure, big moon, little moon, no matter what. It's been very, very good. High winds, whatever. Put that thing on there. If you don't have those, make sure that you get some because it's very productive for you. Working that, and then, of course, if you like to throw shrimp, if you have been a bait guy in the past and want to throw shrimp and popping cork, that's fine. Put that marker 54 underneath that popping cork and go to town and work these potholes, work these edges, work these guts, or free line it and do the same thing with it. You'll be very happy with the results of these going on. So, again, majors and minors have been the key emphasis for the past week or so. All the fish, most of the fish that we are catching are in and around those time frames. So make sure you target that time frame whenever you're able to get on the water to help you find and locate and continue to catch your fish.